Hi folks, I'm International Master John Watson and this is Ask the Master on ICC TV. The main idea of this show is to provide you, the viewers, with a forum to ask questions about chess and the chess world, and you can ask these questions in advance, which is really a good way to do it, by email, which is askimwatson@chessclub.com. So real slowly, askimwatson, that's one word, at chessclub, one word, .com. That's one more time, I'll spell it, ASKIMWATSON at CHESSCLUB.com. So I'll get those and I'll have time to look at them. You can prepare a good question. You can send me a game, for example. It doesn't have to be a question. It can be a comment. You can just want to say something on the air and start a conversation. That would be absolutely fine. Like some opinion of yours, something about the great players. We can talk about almost anything. And speaking of that, oh, and the other way is on the chat right now on the right-hand side of the screen, which I'm not even looking at. There's Alan. Yay, Alan! I've got your game or your excerpt from last week. Jonathan, I had a few of your games recently. I don't think I have one this week. Okay, so the chat on the right side of the screen on YouTube you can use. Questions can include really anything. Very, very commonly we get opening questions, and they're really quite interesting. I think most everybody likes seeing those, but also we've been looking at more games recently, so people can send me games on that askimwatson@chessclub.com address. And we've looked at a bunch of games, and we'll talk about them. When you send a game, you can give comments on the game, or you don't have to at all, or ask a question about the game. Something you want to concentrate on, or again, the opening, as usual, is usually of interest. And we can talk about chess history. We haven't done much of that. We can talk about chess books. We haven't really done that much about chess books. We have talked about chess improvement, things like blindfold chess, chess techniques, problems, tactics, a little bit about beginner's chess, time trouble. But we can repeat all those questions. Would be great to happen again. Be interested if there's people who are interested in chess history. That might be kind of nice. Anyway, let me take a quick look at the chat, and then I'll start with the first game or thing we were going to look at. Okay, we're looking at what state you're from. Oh, yeah, Alan, you never said that's Chess Club 200 yards from your house. That's great. Jackson is pretty reasonably big. I used to go play at a food court. Yeah, that's very common in the United States, going to Starbucks and playing or something like that. I've done that too, often. Yeah, we have very few clubs in the United States, and if they are, they're just open one night a week in some hotel room or something, some cheap hotel room. Once in a while, though, there are some. Where I live in San Diego, there's a great big building that's just dedicated to chess. Okay, Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah, not Jacksonville, right. Oh, Mohammed M. Hi, from Iraq, and I didn't know that you were from there. You've asked very good questions. Celsius 7984. I wonder what the meaning of that is. That sounds hot. Hello, Mohammed from Iraq again. Yeah, okay, that's ears. Hi, ears. All right, well, we don't have a specific question yet, so let me just go ahead and talk. Oh, I should mention that I've got the updates of all the shows, the openings that we've covered in all the shows going all the way back for a couple of years. That's on my Facebook page, John L. Watson. That's 3 words on my timeline. And I didn't update it for last week, but you've got all the other shows. And actually, just 2 weeks ago, I put one post that had all the shows going backwards, so you don't have to look at each individual post. And the way that you can do this is you can then find the show. All the shows are archived on YouTube, so you can search for them by date, or just kind of look at all the Ask the Master with Watson, and sort of scroll through them and look at the date. And then what you can do is you can actually scroll through the show by dragging your mouse along the bottom line, and that way you can get to the point where the positions appear that you're interested in. So it's really quite a fast process. Okay, let me look at, Alan mentioned his game. I'm going to review from previous shows, especially last week's chat or the week before. Alan mentioned his game with this opening. He keeps playing the Peer's Defense, and he gets better at it all the time, which I think is really exactly the way to go. I should also say he looked up this one after the game and looked at some theory, and that's so very, very useful. You just learn more about the position and understand it better. And every week you learn, if nothing else, one new move against what they played against you, or maybe several new, moves deep against whatever someone played against you. That's the Peer's Defense. Alan is black, and this game actually is Plachetka Yansa. from many years ago, and Alan mentioned the game in his chat question. So this is a main line against the pier. It's where white sets up the big center and tries to just drive black back with the move e5. But first he plays bishop e3 to get developed before he starts attacking. It's the main move in this position. And black plays knight a6, a very extremely common move for many years. Not quite as common these days. Probably the more professional move is this one. Although there's still some very top players. I'm trying to think, there's one guy in particular that plays this all the time, and he's a really top player. Onashuk plays this. Anyway, so knight a6, that's to support the move c5 and not get hit by takes followed by e5, which is not a very good pawn structure. And the reason, by the way, that's not a very good pawn structure, and there may be other answers that I don't know about, but the reason this isn't a very good pawn structure is because white's bishops are doing very useful things. Black's bishop is running into this pawn. So not only does white have space, but black's bishop is kind of stuck on g7. So the idea is let's get c5 in without allowing takes in e5. All right, so white castles, black plays that, and the main move now, because taking is puts black's knight right in the center and attacking one of white's bishops. And remember, we love bishops, or at least top players love bishops. So in order to avoid that, white plays d5, because he doesn't want black to take either and really activate that bishop like the dragon. So white plays d5, gaining space, and black plays here, and that's the most common move, although sometimes knight b4 is played and sometimes knight c7 to support the advance of the pawn is played. But bishop g4, I think, has been more common over the years than any other move, and white plays a move which Alan rightly criticizes. It's actually a totally logical move. White's running over here to attack on the king side with these kinds of moves, and that's been a very effective attack, especially because it sort of gains a tempo attacking that bishop too. The problem is there's a specific concrete answer for black, which is first that move. Oh wait, is that? Yeah, that's right, of course. Trying to get rid of one of white's good attacking pieces, and then after white continues his plan of attacking, black doesn't take this bishop, even though that would probably be okay. But not great. He plays this clever move, c4, threatening to take a bishop for just a pawn, or for nothing, and white has to take that, and now black wins this pawn back, and that's an important pawn. First of all, the bishop's been diverted. Secondly, it's with tempo, and also it covers these key dark squares, d4 and e3, and notice that the dark squared bishop is still aiming at those squares, and the queen can come out to b6 with check, hitting those squares. So black's probably already better here. White has to save his rook, and then black plays, oh, I just wanted to show instead of queen e1, well, maybe I'll go back, because he was kind of asking about that. Black takes, and black attacks. This is quite a good move. Just bring another piece into play with tempo, attacking the bishop. And the bishop has some choices now. In the game, white plays the bishop there. Alan mentioned that in his game, white played bishop here, and that's a much better move. I was looking at this, and I think it's hard for white. Now, black's fine here, but it's hard for white to gain the advantage here. It's for black to gain the advantage here. I think it's roughly equal here, oddly enough. I would first sight I'd like black, but I think white's got the two bishops, and he's fairly active. And all black has is that one very nice outpost. It's not that special for black. But there's some tactics, but they seem to work out fine for white. So I'd say this is about equal, but black has nothing to fear. He's well developed and he has good activity. This didn't happen, sorry. So what happened was this move, and that's simply a mistake, as I think he pointed out. This is from Alan's game. Now, I think, Alan, in your question, you simply mentioned this move, and you stopped here, I think. But anyway, and he mentioned the game. So I thought I'd show the game. The game goes knight there, good move, forking these two squares, winning a tempo, and also beautifully centralized knight. White played here. I'm not sure if he has anything better. He's playing for kind of a cheap attack, but black's very, very well defended against that attack. Even if white got e5 in and drove the knight away, the knight could maybe go here, and black's got plenty of time to win on the queen side. So black takes a piece, and then plays h5, which is not the only move at all. Black could actually be very greedy here and get the queen. Now it looks like all black is doing is grabbing a pawn here, but he's also stopping moves like this because then there's rook takes. And if a knight ever comes out because of the pin, he also has the queen coming close to the king and defending this way and hitting the e-pawn. So you could risk playing for the pawn. It looks greedy, but in fact it's also a counterattack. That's why it's not just greedy. White has no real attack here. I won't go into the details, but it turns out Black's doing great there. But Black's also doing well the way he played it in the game, which was h5, and I don't know why I'm not getting. Oh, because I haven't played the check. Black played h5, still threatening the check and stopping any attacking ideas. And White came back. There's not much else to do. If White plays a move like bishop here, then you're running into this knight move, which opens up this bishop and threatens takes followed by a pin on the diagonal, which would also divert the rook. So that's strong. So instead, White played one more move back. White played that move, realizing he needs to defend these dark squares. And Black played check. Now maybe White should just come back. I don't know with the queen. It doesn't matter. Black's quite a bit better here. And Black takes that pawn now, which is excellent. Now once the knight moves, there's going to be a bishop takes or a rook takes threat because of that pin. So White goes crazy and just tries to attack. Well, actually, first he defends that square, which is a good idea. And Black plays beautifully, just b5, attacking here. Once that knight goes, the queen might sneak down here, and the rook's going to have more scope, and that pawn's going to be weak. And so White, at this point, moves the rook out of that pin, and Black continues with his plan. He doesn't play b4. I'm sure he could. But this is a good move. It threatens to go b4, followed by taking the big center pawn. Remember, when you take a center pawn, that's really good. That would also be a second pawn. So White tries to attack. I was going to say the only other thing he can do besides just sort of giving up all this material is play rook to the 7th rank. The problem is he doesn't have anything supporting that move. So b4. Now this square has to be defended because it's attacked twice. So knight here, knight takes. And Black's still ahead in material, but also has another center pawn. He's going to win another center pawn. So this is terrific. So White tries to avoid that by playing e5. Whoops. Where does he play e5? Here. And Black just takes the center pawn. Now White goes to the 7th rank, but there's yet another knight coming into squares like this. It's just very depressing for essentially what it amounts to is Black's queenside attack came way before any kingside attack by White, which actually never happened. The kingside attack, that is. Okay, 2 open files, no hurry here, and also if the queen takes and Black takes back, there's going to be a mating threat on the last rank. So White just develops, and Black decides to be ambitious by attacking that rook and hitting the bishop. And the queen defends both pieces. That's a forced move, but it also loses because of captures. And by the way, these are both grandmasters. So Black played a very nice game, and White just got killed in the opening, basically. But this is very pretty. There's a fork, by the way, between the two, if you recognize, between the two rooks. So White resigned. Okay. Yeah, there's bishop c4, king h1, a3. Bishop c4 has been played more than anything else, and I thought I'd show you that briefly. Let me go back to the beginning. So you can see the new moves again. There's the Peertz defense. White defends e4, gets the big center. Black is playing all these moves, just like the King's Indian, but it's the King's Indian against the e4 move. So there's no c4 in like there is in the King's Indian. So White develops. Black attacks the center. Very good game here by Alan. You're getting better all the time, I think. Okay, and now there's this c4 trick. Okay, so what White should do, and that was the question, what should White do here? And it turns out there are several moves. He mentions a3, king h1, which I'm not thrilled with. a3 is a good move. I like bishop. I mean, bishop c4 is a really nice move, actually. It's the move that's been played most often traditionally. Yeah, as Alan says, that's bishop c4. Ears looked this up. And let me just see what else he said. Oh, there's a question. I'll go back to that question. Oh, Brazil. We've got all kinds of things on the chat. But let's finish this game and a little bit of analysis. Let me show you. Now Black can play knight c7 with the idea of attacking with b5. He can play knight d7, just stopping e5. And it's a nice move anyway. Sometimes the knight goes to b6. And there's also this, but then White can take. And there's some real weaknesses here in the center. So probably that's not Black's best move, although he might play it later to break up the center. The most interesting move is this. which, frees this bishop. It means sometimes there's this knight here. Black can play for these ideas of either knight b4 or knight c7 later. But one of Black's main themes is to play this move, knight c7 followed by rook b8 followed by b5, but he wants to stop White's attack with e5 first. Notice now that if e5, Black can take the knight and then take the pawn, and that's a center pawn. You don't really want to lose a center pawn. So White plays here. This is kind of the main line, actually. You can also take with the queen. If you take with the queen, Black just goes ahead and plays for this b5 idea. And White can, for example, try to stop it, but then Black just continues trying to play it. Let me see if I gave any lines here. Yeah, I did. I gave rook b8, bishop d2, a6. And now the most obvious move to stop Black from getting b5 in, which is very strong, because notice these pawns just drive White's pieces back. And that also opens up this diagonal. The most obvious move is a5, but this is actually quite an interesting position. Black plays b5 anyway. Knight takes with tempo on the bishop, and then pretty much no matter where the bishop goes, if bishop takes on a6, you can take it and play knight c4. That hits every square on the, all these queenside squares. So White probably retreats, and then Black has this nice move, I think it's now, knight b5, aiming for that beautiful d4 outpost. And if White starts trying to take that, Black's going to win stuff on the b file that way. So that's all I need to show, really. There's more. This was a game, Kravstifirmen, Essen, Germany, 2014. Okay, enough of that. Let's go to the question. First question from Jonathan, I think it is, or although I might have missed something. Okay, I knew the theory while I was playing. Yes. Oh, good. You already knew the theory. Strong coffee and weak chess. I have a question. Do you think the dragon is playable at the IM level? Oh, sure it is. Yeah. I think even at the GM level. I have a friend who's played the dragon his whole life, an international master, and he's done quite well with it. Top players, maybe one problem with the dragon is that White has so many options, and a lot of them are just a little bit nagging. They're okay for Black, but they don't give Black many prospects. I think that's the only reason it's not played more on the top level. But if you think about it, Carlsen played it for a little bit, and Kasparov played it, and a lot of other strong grandmasters have played it, and they've done fine. So I don't think there's a refutation. If you look at the chess publishing site, Ward's column, he's been defending Black's position for years, and it seems fairly convincing. Okay, Jonathan asks about e4, e5, bishop c4, knight f6. Knight f3, okay. A d3 is sort of the main move if you're going to play the bishop c4 order. And then there was even a game in the World Cup following this traditional line, which is after d5, bishop b3. I used to play this for White once in a while. Had some really nice games with it. White's threatening that, and it looks like Black can win stuff, but after knight here, the f7 square is hanging. So pretty fascinating stuff. But that's just one line. So knight f3. Now Black can take now, and that's the problem with this line. Black can take on e4, or it's one problem. How do you avoid playing knight c6 when White plays bishop c4 to avoid this? I think you can simply play knight takes, if I remember right. It's been a long time, but I don't think there's any serious problem with that. If knight takes here, you have the move d5, stopping knight f7, and you just can attack the knight next and drive it back and castle. So this is a fine position, probably better for Black, because Black has more of the center. If White plays, what else can White play? I mean, there's moves like this, but at the very least, Black can simply, well, there's d5 again. Sorry, that's a strong move. Blocking that bishop off. So Jonathan, I don't think there's any problem with knight takes e4. White would probably try to do something. Well, there's the Boden-Kieseritzky gambit, which, by the way, I also used to play when I was a kid. And there's two good answers. If Black wants to play it safe, he can play here, attacking the bishop, which is a very important piece. And then probably just give up this pawn, although you could advance it or play knight c6. If you play knight c6, you might run into, well, no, I think this is fully playable. That's one way to play it, if you want to play it safe. If you want to play accept the gambit, most people think the gambit is slightly unsound after the move f6. Stopping knight g5. Now White can do clever things here. Knight h4 threatening check followed by f4. So you can have a lot of fun with this as White. But if Black knows it, he usually ends up a pawn ahead, and that you don't want. The problem is after g6, f5 is with tempo on the knight. I hope that kind of answers that. So I think knight takes e4 is just a good move, and that's why white doesn't play this move order, unless I got the move order wrong. No, I don't think I did. So that's how you avoid knight c6. Okay, Alan, I knew that bishop c4. Okay, there we go. King h1 is given in the books. Yeah, I know it's one of the moves, but it's not played as much as the other moves, and it's just a little too slow, in my opinion. It's equal, but it's a little slow. I used to write the Pearce column for chess publishing, so I kind of knew, I kind of familiar with that position, because knight a6 used to be really popular. Okay, so that's enough of that for the moment, and let's just continue with stuff that came up from last week. Colin, who's not here, I think asked, or hasn't said anything yet, do you prefer the e6 or g6 approach to the Rossolimo? So let me talk about the Rossolimo because that's very popular. This might help people as black and white. If you're white, this is an awfully handy line to avoid all the various lines after this, like the Sveshnikov, like the accelerated fianchetto. There's a lot to worry about. Also, just the rouser. You've got to know the rouser. The Sveshnikov can be really a problem. Either the Kolesnikov, which is this, or the Sveshnikov, which is this. These things are sometimes not very much, you have to learn an awful lot of theory. So increasingly, even top players have played for the last maybe 10 years, have been playing this move bishop b5. That's called the Rossolimo, and it's just very, very popular. So this is interesting because I have students who play this, but I'd never really looked at the statistics between e6 and g6. I always recommended g6 to players of black. I just like it. You know, it covers the long diagonal, and it's just thematic. Sometimes you can follow up with e5. Sometimes you can follow up more slowly with just knight f6, depending what white does. In other words, you get to this basic position. White has some choices here. He can play c3 is very popular, rook e1, sometimes queen e2. I'm trying to think of it. Well, bishop takes is sometimes played just to double the pawns. Oh, in fact, that's a very common move at the top, especially. But I wouldn't play that because you get behind in development. You give black the two bishops, and I think that's fine, but you have to be a very sophisticated player to play it. Okay, so what is the question? Oh yeah, statistics. So I looked up, this was kind of interesting. Let's start with e6, which I know less about. I've never really liked it because I feel like the doubled pawns now are better. For example, just as a positional principle, this move e5 can really now if black ever plays d6 or d5, if he doesn't, you can like pile up on the d6 square with moves like that. So if black eventually plays d6 or d5 and you take it, then black has these permanent weaknesses. Now he does have two bishops, but you have an outpost on c4, and you have these permanent weaknesses on c6 and c5. So I've never really liked it. Now it turns out black can play against that. You can break up with f6, and it's no big deal. But just in principle, I've never liked e6 as much. Anyway, the main line is when white castles, and I thought I'd show you just sort of a main line. White usually avoids bishop takes, black avoids bishop takes c6 temporarily, and it's also a handy way to get your pieces out with knight g6. The problem is, well, okay, let's just continue with that. So let me show you one of the main lines of this line. Now there's millions of lines here because this has been played for years, but I wanted to show you, okay, castles knight e7. c3 is the most popular move these days, although actually this move rook e1 and after a6 trying to win the two bishops and not get doubled pawns, white can retreat to f1. And now he can start attacking in the center. Now it turns out this is okay for black because black can play here, or other lines too. But one idea here is that position is, now I would think white, I don't know, I might want to play this for white instead of the other main line I'm going to show you. I don't know, I always feel like white should be better here, but if you know what you're doing as black, this is supposed to be just fine. And the other way to play for white is this c3 move, which gives that bishop an extra square if it wants to run back here like in the Ruy Lopez. And in fact, you can get Ruy Lopez kinds of positions. Let me just show you sort of the main line here, or one of the main lines. Now black can play d5 again, but he more often waits with that move. And then if white plays d4, black can play d5 again. I'm sorry, take first. Wait, no, he usually doesn't take first, I don't think. Uh-oh, I'm forgetting my theory. Yeah, why don't they play d4 immediately? Oh, maybe takes a knight b4. That's right. Okay, so the bishop doesn't have a good place to go because this is hanging. So if the bishop tries to, this is white's best piece, and it can't run away from the knight because of this. So that's why white plays something else first. Usually either rook and queen e2 is a very common move. Thinking about breaking up the queen side and thinking about playing e5. And in fact, this position has happened, I think, a fair amount. Actually, no, d5 first. And then if white plays e5, you can just play d4. You don't have to, but you can just play d4 here. And I think I kind of like black here. White should play this move, otherwise he's just starting to lose space, kind of pinning the knight there. But black's got more space, you know, he's got d4 in, and so this is at least equal and has been played many, many times. Black should play here, kind of keeping an eye on that, thinking about queen c7. White should probably play d3. If he takes it, let me see. What are some other moves here? See if I have any other moves here. Oh yeah, taking is pretty common. Oh, this is interesting. If he takes it, he might get a positional advantage if black takes back, but black can just make a move like rook c8 or even rook b8. And if white wins a pawn, now white's a pawn ahead, but look at black's development and his control of the central square and his long-term threats on that pawn, and even there's tactical ideas like knight f4. And it turns out this position might even be better for black. It's certainly easy to play anyway. So that's sort of some theory. So the question is, what's happened in this line? And I was surprised to find, I've always thought e6 was a little weaker. E6 ends up being 51% for white winning percentage to 49%, which is almost dead even. It's also a little lower than white's normal winning percentage in chess. Not much, but it's a couple percentage points lower. And only a 50-point performance rating lead, which is usually a more important statistic. And what that means is if you had a 100-game match and white won 51 points against the kind of players that are in the database. This is from a database with about 2,300 players average. White would end up 50 rating points higher than black. And that's called a performance rating, and that's a little less than white usually gets in chess. So e6 has been pretty darn good. g6, which I think of as being sort of better or more professional or something, scores, oddly enough, scores 59% for white to 41%, which is much higher than white usually plays, although it's only a 100-point performance edge for white, which is fairly normal. That's roughly normal, maybe, yeah, I would say that's about normal. So it's not bad rating-wise. That means it's not bad. G6 has been okay, but not as good as E6 in results. And I think in this case, results mean something because, oh, by the way, this is over the last couple of years, so I'm looking at more modern games. Because that includes a lot of games. So, it's kind of a good sign sometimes when you see good players playing something and somebody has a better record with one move than another. It doesn't always mean that much, but it's something to think about. Yeah, no, A6 is, that's what white wants. It's a whole tempo, and when you double these pawns with a whole tempo, and it's been played, it's not the end of the world. It used to be played a lot more. You want to play DC. A lot of players play BC, capturing towards the center to support these center pawns. If you play DC, I have to think about this. Well, wait a minute, let me go back a bit. I lost that. Scrolling down. D takes C, castles, knight F6. Yeah. See, I like this for white. You can even wait a move and see what black's doing. But this is fine. And then after knight here, just knight C3. Or sometimes this little structure is pretty neat. You play like A4. Knight here, you might play a5, knight c4, b3, bishop b2, or, I just kind of like this. And the other structure is with a3. But I think even here, even right now, a4 is not a bad move. Just to sort of tie down the queen side, although I think it's too early. I think d3 is actually the main move now in this position, rather than knight c3. Knight c3 would have the idea of maybe coming here. Did you mention knight c3? No, it is a thing in the Rossolimo. I just don't think it's that good. This position is considered better for white. These pawns normally wouldn't be that weak, except you've also made that move. So now you have some structural problems over there because you've got a hole over there. And how slow can you be? I mean, you can't be too slow because white will start getting an attack. And white's got more space and can really tie you down. If he gets too many pieces out, you're in trouble. So black has to just allow that hole to sit there for a while. If black plays out with the bishop or something like that, the problem is he loses. Now, probably I would just go here now, so I can retake with the knight. But the problem is if black intends to take this, he's lost his only advantage in this position, which is the bishop pair. Okay, so a6 it's been played. It's not the end of the world, but it's I don't think the best. I don't think most people don't think it's the best line. Okay, now we have from Rahman, we have a question, and then I'll get back to the ones from last week or the games I was sent. I wasn't sent as much this week, by the way. You guys, I need to start sending me things. AskIamWatson@chessclub.com. It's fun. It's fun to ask something. You can always send me your games. I told you that. That's always fun. Knight c3. I should show you some of my games once in a while. Can white play the English attack formation like f3, bishop e3, and long passing? He can, but it depends what black plays now. First of all, you have a threat now. Now everybody should know that this is not a threat here because of queen a5 check picking up a center pawn. But after knight c3, it is a threat. And that really influences what happens for black here. For example, if black plays here, trying to stop e5, you have to consider this variation. And after knight goes here, and there's kind of a structural issue here, although it's playable. This is called the four knights. And also you have to consider this move, threatening to come into that square, and then the normal move is here, and we're back to a Sveshnikov after. Now there's three pieces on that, and this actually transposes to a Sveshnikov. So white wouldn't play the what you're talking about. Oh, might not play this bishop e3 trying to follow by f3. f3 immediately I think is too slow because the dark squares are very vulnerable. Either queen b6 or bishop c5, and you've got me, probably bishop c5. And if white starts retreating, then he has trouble getting castled later. But if he plays bishop e3, you might play queen b6. I don't know if that's true. I think queen b6 is okay here. Three pieces on here. The knight can't move because you lose a piece, so you have to play knight a4. Then probably this check hitting the knight forces c3 or a repetition. If you go there, black can always play back and draw, or probably play some other move too. But and if you go here, then there might be b5 after taking. I suspect black's better. He just has too much development. Notice how white hasn't got any pieces out. Now, is b5 a good move? Not really. Knight c5, right? So I could be wrong about this. I feel like, well, you know, worst comes to worst, you can just take that, and you've still got your central majority here. Oh, funny position. I'm not familiar with this position. I feel like black's fine because of the stupid knight out here. Oh, don't know what you play here. Interesting. Not sure quite what to play here, but I'm not scared as black. You could just develop. You might even be able to play d5. You can play b6. That's always a safe move and get your bishop out. You can castle. There's nothing wrong with castling. Interesting, though. Okay, so f3 I thought was too slow, but maybe it's playable, but I'm sure black's at least equal. And if you play this way, which is the better way to get to the English attack, like that, it's kind of slow because black can just, there's several moves black can make. Black can make that move, attacking here, and then after f3 you're going to have a d5 move, probably not immediately. You could play d5 right away. Black's got too much development. This is kind of the reason white has to make sure this is the great freeing move in the Sicilian. And you don't see it very often. Well, why don't you see it? It's because white stops it. White doesn't allow it. If white allows d5, usually black is considered completely equal. Also, black can castle here and play d5 next move. It's another good way to play. So bishop e4 is quite a good move, actually. And the other good move is, reasonable move is, I think, d5 right away. Although I wouldn't swear by that. I'm not so sure of that one. But after this move, with tempo, then d5 comes with tempo, and it's kind of tough. All right, so I hope that answers that. The answer really is no, you can't get the English attack by force as white. There's no way to get it. The lines where you can get the English attack, you can play the English attack against what's called the Scheveningen. Probably play this first, and then if black plays here, we're in a Najdorf, and then this is a main line of the Najdorf. It goes, you know, the professionals play this and they go 25 moves deep because there's so much forcing play with white attacking this way and black attacking this way that actually every move counts. And there's a ton of theory on this. And you're right, white's idea is queen d2 and castle's queenside, g4, h4, g5, maybe bishop h3, h5, g6, and black's idea is b5, bishop b7. I don't have my mouses here. Bishop b5 here. I'm going to get, you know, the order is not always exact, although sometimes this knight goes that way. Anyway, there's tons of theory on this stupid position. Goes on and on and on. White tries to attack that way. Black tries to defend these squares so he can play b4. White attacks, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, you could have fun playing this. I think you could understand a lot. What's the question? Yeah, so only against d6 you could play that. Hi, John and Scott. Thanks so much for your notes. Yeah, okay, good. Glad you saw those. A game I played, a Sicilian is a must to learn for club players, maybe. Certainly as white, if you play e4, you have to learn it. A game I played a few days ago but got a draw. I might return to that because we have other things to show. I bet I'll get to it by this show though because we're doing well in time. John does not read your tube chat. Oh, yes, I do. H3 is much better. We already showed one of Alan's this week, but I'll get back to that one. I think I'll have time, but I want to make sure I don't forget things that I was already planning to do. So that's the Rossolimo answer, and the Alan's question from last week. And then I got one viewer ran into the very strange opening. He says, followed into this following strange opening, wondered what to do about it and what I thought about it. Well, the first move is knight c3. We've actually talked about this a little bit. Knight c3 is a little better move than its reputation. It's kind of a flexible move. The main problem with it is black can play anything he wants. He can play e5, d5, g6, knight f6, c5, right? And I used to play knight c3 a little bit. One tournament I played knight c3 3 times, and I just transposed him to a closed Sicilian. Or did I play knight f3 first? I played knight f3 first to see which Sicilian he might be interested in playing. And I had some clever ideas against various moves, but I think he just transposed here, and I ended up playing e4. Got back to that position. He can also play that. A Sicilian player might want to play that. The main line is here because there's this direct idea of d4. And you might say, boy, why would white ever do this? But white can now play e4, and that leads to a lot of interesting positions. Black can play d4, but now this is a little different. Sure, the knight was driven back, but white still ahead in development and can set up with d3 and then maybe even play a King's Indian and then play for f4, or just play knight g3, and let me see if black make a move. And now if white gets a chance, he can play bishop here, or maybe even bishop b5 check, and then d3 here, and then play for maybe f4 or just develop. And there's nice chances here. This is a well-known structure that's fine for white. It's okay for black too, but it's interesting. Also c3 is a move to break up the center, attacking black center. So black has a lot of options here. This is a French defense. This is a normal French defense. It can come up from other orders. And this one is a normal knight c3 French defense. So, but white has a lot of options. White can do silly things like queen e2, queen f3 is a move. There's ways to deviate and have some fun here. Or you can just play a French defense. Black can also play a Caro-Kann defense. And the difference here, well, here's the so-called what is it called? Two knights Caro-Kann. Notice it was played this weekend in a tournament I went to. And this is well known. Or you can play into a main line Caro-Kann, or you can play, there's funny moves. One funny system you can play that sometimes black doesn't know is this move, because if d4, you threaten checkmate before you get your knight back. And that means the knight isn't blocking off the bishop on f1, because you're well, it's not actually checkmate, but it's a win. It's a pretty easy win, I think, because after check here, you're going to have the d file. Probably take d takes c. Now you're threatening bishop f4, cutting the king off, followed by rook d1 check, winning the queen or the king. Anyway, this is a slaughter. But you have to study things like this. Things like that don't always win, but in this case it does. So black just plays something else like e6, stopping mate, and white retreats. And now white has 3 pieces out against none. On the other hand, this bishop isn't doing much. The queen's out kind of early, and you know that can be a disadvantage. So this is playable for both sides. Okay, that's the Caro-Kann. See, knight c3 is sort of fascinating. There's all kinds of neat things you can do with knight c3. What else can black do? This is an Elyakin defense. It usually comes up from e4, knight f6, knight c3, d5. It's well known. And if you want to do something fun against that, now black can play here. Black usually plays here, and then white can play this gambit. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. The idea is to kind of hold down the center, play knight f3, bishop d3, castles, rook e1. You're pawn down, but you have a central attack. So that's one thing you can do against knight f6. Also, black can play other moves. There's the Vienna game. You may not want to play that. That's a bit of a problem, maybe. But against d5, you don't have to worry about that. Against d5, you don't have to worry about what to do against the Vienna game. Is that all? Yeah, that's about all. Well, there's a lot more, actually, that can be played in these positions after knight c3. But that's a little overview. You might want to play it for experimental purposes. In this game, black played, oh, I thought I had this game. Let me put this up. X1, 112 maybe? In the game that I was asked about, or at least the opening I was asked about, white played this move, very slow move, probably not consistent with knight here, because after all, d4 is going to happen, and you want something that gains you some space or development, and d3 doesn't do either one. Black played knight f6, and you could also actually already gain space against the knight here. This is a nice move. The knight probably goes to e4, but now you can play whatever you want. Just knight c6, followed up with e5. I think black's already doing pretty well here. You can also play f5. You can really go for it here. Get this position. This position at first doesn't look bad for white because he's got pretty good development, but he can't get his bishop out easily. It's very hard to get the bishop out. If you go here or, well, that's risky because of f4, but even here, if you look at this position, now you can't play bishop takes because of this. And if you play pawn takes, you're just very negative. This position's very backwards and passive. So I don't really like d3. I think you could just exploit it immediately. And I should say something. When someone plays something irregular against you or something that gives you space or you think it creates weaknesses, let me make one more move. Black played here, white played here. And that's even worse because now you've got this huge hole here. And what I wanted to say is in this game, black, who's a pretty good player, played kind of passively. And I think it's good, if nothing else, to get in practice playing aggressively. This is a very strong move. You know, we've only played 4 moves, I guess, and black's already considerably better. He's just going to play for e5, and white can't really stop that. Just play that move. If white plays here, you can just play e5 anyway. And if white takes here, black practically wins, I think, because he's got queen h4 check, which is extremely strong. But that's not surprising. Look how weak these pawns are. That's called the Irish pawn center, by the way. It's an insult to Ireland, but I think someone from Ireland played that pawn center. Anyway, and if he takes this way, you can just take, play check, forcing bishop d2, and then come back, and you've got complete control over that e3 square. Now you can just castle and play rook e8 and pick your pawn back up, or queen e7. And now you get your pawn back, and white has weaknesses all over the place. So d3, to me, is very unimpressive, and f4 is even worse. I really don't like f4 because of this d4 move. I mean, what else can white do here? He can take, but then the black's pieces come out like crazy. Now you've got an open file against that weakness on e3, and the bishop's coming out really fast. This is practically lost. So this is what I wanted to say is get practice playing aggressively. You're going to become a better player. I mean, once in a while you're going to overextend, but so what? Once in a while you're going to play too passively if you don't do this. You'll learn more about chess if you just play aggressively. Okay, now white can play for e4. In fact, he probably should have done so. I think black should get a piece out before he makes a move like e6, stopping e4. And white's still better in this position. But after this, white could just play e4 right now, for example. And if black gives up the center like that, sure, he keeps the king in the center, but white's better developed, and black's pieces are very passive. This is a nice pawn structure for white. So let's just continue. White didn't play e4. White played e3, also very passive. Black put his bishop on a passive square. White put his bishop on a passive square. And black kind of lashed out. It's an interesting move. Why not? Play a little aggressively. I don't know how great it is. White was chicken and stopped it. There was no real reason to stop before. And that's pretty much the opening. Let's see if there's anything else to talk about. Oh yeah, white made this premature move knight here, and black simply attacked it, I think right now. Yeah, and there's no way to defend it without giving up all the squares in the center. So he took, and now black's just better. Or did black take with the knight? I can't remember. No, actually black took with the knight, which is good too, because now when he takes with the knight, he's got a chance to play e4. So what's white doing here? Well, he's got weaknesses, and I mean on e3, and he's got that pawn on f4 doing nothing. So black's already better. He makes a good move, e4. I think that's good to try and free your game. I can stop pretty soon. I don't like taking that at all. I think black should just advance. Like I say, go ahead, grab some space. Don't be scared to have space. A lot of lower players don't like having space because they've had the experience of grabbing space and then losing, getting counterattacked. But here you're just going to play, for c4 eventually. You're going to get you've got e4, castles. Black's just better here. And maybe I'll stop there because all he asked about was the opening and the rest of the game was a little bit shaky. Okay, d5, e6, e6. I tricked you. Yeah, well, there you go with the Caro-Kann, but the Caro-Kann is nothing special. You just have to be willing to play that if you play one knight c3. But you could argue that you were tricked because, well, unless you're already a Caro-Kann player, and then so what? White's maybe used to be an e4 player or is used to be and doesn't mind this, or can just study any of a number of lines against the Caro-Kann. So I don't think I don't know if it's a trick. As I say, this would be the French defense. My point is, though, what's white got to fear here if black plays moves like that? What do you recommend versus that d3? Oh, so yeah, is asking against d3, and we talked about that. We didn't look at e3, but it's the same problem. It's just much too slow. Against that, well, you can play a French reversed like this. Probably a pretty, decent one because you could just play there probably. If white does nothing, you can just start kicking the knight. What are some other moves against e3? Well, just developing, of course, is always good. e3 is too slow. It's maybe equal because you're white, but you've already given up all your advantage. You may even be worse already. It's really possible you're worse already because you're blocking off all your own pieces. Yeah, actually, this position, what does white do? White's almost got to play here, and it's kind of a bad French. If the knight were here, it'd be okay for white, but he's able to defend with c6, and yeah, I don't like this. I don't like this. It's almost equal, but why does white want to be almost equal on the third move? That's the real issue here. I hate e4, e5 so much that I play d4 when I know my opponent is an e4 player. E5 player. Yeah, I don't blame you. E4, E5 is very solid. Some people love it. Some people love playing both sides of E4, E5, and that's fine. H3 is much better. Oh, that's in the old. Oh, I never answered Alan's question. Let's go back to that, especially because we're sort of running towards time. I probably won't give bonus time today. Knight here, knight here. So we are English opening again. So this time you're white, Alan, right? We've seen your white games before. And we've seen you play the English, I believe. G3, bishop G4. That's a strange move. It's like black wants to give up the two bishops. Bishop E7. One good thing for white to do now is force things in the center, because black's played very passively, and you have this pressure down here against that pawn. And if black takes, he's surrendered the center, and you're still threatening this. It's just a comfortable position. I used to win games with white in this kind of position. But what did Alan do? Queen C2. You're right to give that question mark, because what you're really trying to do is break in the center. It's the same thing. If your opponent plays passively, you try playing actively. Don't be scared to play actively. You're going to learn more about chess for sure. You're probably going to also win more games, but you've got to learn how to punish slow moves. Mainly you have to punish weaknesses, but you should also try and punish slow moves. There's no weaknesses here for black, so at least that's something. And he's catching up in development. Queen C2 actually could hurt your development. Knight D5, now you're moving a piece twice, and it's not even got any threats, and it can be exchanged. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed a Knight C6 move somewhere. No, I think you missed it. It says Knight D4. Alan, I think you didn't mention Knight C6 here. No, you didn't. You didn't mention black playing Knight G6, so the order's wrong. You can correct it if you want to. Because what he says is takes, Knight D4, and I got murdered. Well, that's not possible because the knight's not out yet, according to the moves you gave. But actually, this would be a good position for black because white's wasted way too much time. Black can break with c6, and then pretty soon he's going to be on that c file with an extra tempo, and the center's going to be broken up. So I think black's probably already a little better here. Well, I'm sure he's a little better. Yeah, Knight d5 is a mistake. It not only moves a piece twice, but it ruins your long diagonal. It cuts off your long diagonal and weakens your center. So you were right to question these two moves. Good for you. You understood that those were not good moves. I was intending Queen A4 check of Knight D4 earlier. Okay, so we've got the wrong position. We could take a quick look and see what was really played. Alan, you can tell me what was really played. C4, E5, knight C3. Maybe it was knight C6. I bet it was knight C6 on the second move. You said knight F6, I guess. I'm not sure. Bishop G4. Um, Bishop G2. Well, there goes my D4 comment. Although D4 is probably still a very good move, because if bishop takes, now if knight takes, you're going to run into this bishop takes B7 thing, and white's going to have two bishops for nothing. And if pawn takes, you can probably take on C6. Now you could also, no, you better take. Yeah, you could play knight B5 too. But anyway, this, now you don't have two bishops anymore, but you have more space in the center. You've got good development, and black's got some weaknesses. Black can play this kind of position, but usually he's got a little more development. He's gained more development to play this. Okay, so D4 is not anything that special, but it's a move. You played Queen C2, not a good move. You're right, because the knight on C6 is even worse. Castles, oh no, so there is a knight F6 in. Yeah, you should correct the notation. It was probably something like castles, knight D5. Oh, I'm sorry, it's black's move. Knight D5 takes. I'm just guessing, Alan. You can tell me. And then bishop takes F3, followed by knight D4. You should get murdered here, but I'd rather be black. Black's got the better pawn structure. This pawn is really not very good. And black can play for F4 and E4. Okay. So, okay, you've probably corrected yourself by now. Let me see. John Hartman, hi. I hate E4, E5 so much. John Hartman plays E4, E5, so you've insulted his opening. Oh, no, you haven't, because you're saying you avoided as white. So you've complimented his opening. And knight C6, yeah. E4 and knight C6. Oh, my God, of course you got murdered. Oh, that's actually really interesting. So basically, this may not be the exact position because the castling's in, but at some point white had played E4 already. And you can just imagine how bad this is, because that's a huge outpost and you can get rid of the only defender. So this came out very badly. I think it went something like, we've got it. Thank you, Alan. Your other moves were correct. Now it says knight D4 and I was murdered, but you probably mean this, and knight D4. Yeah, and this is particularly bad because that knight is so powerful. There's no way the knight has to take the bishop now because it's such a beautiful outpost. Also, white's not very well developed. Look at these guys. You haven't even castled yet, and those guys are not out. Alan, you sometimes have especially in positions you don't know, you have a developing problem. All you guys, if in doubt and you're getting a little worried about, you haven't seen an opening, think about developing. It's kind of important to develop once in a while. Okay, especially when you feel kind of like maybe they're attacking or they're gaining a lot of tempi. You know, white lost very serious tempi there, moving a piece twice. Well, you know, when in doubt, just get castled. You know, don't start moving pieces twice. Even once you've made this move, you'd be a little better off if you had castled here. Even though black might be better, well, at least you've gained one move, and you can play as fast as possible D3 and bishop E3 and maybe even take that. So even though this is not a good position, it's better than the one you got because you wasted a move, right? Anyway, I think you wasted a move. Maybe I'm wrong with that. Anyway, yeah, good. So we learned something. Don't give up big outposts like that unless you can defend them. Oh, you were trying to play a Botvinnik system. Yeah, you know, it doesn't work against everything to play E4 and bishop G2. It's not, I don't remember your order, but you don't always want to just play blindly E4 and this and this. It's called the Botvinnik system, and I'm sure Alan knows that. It's good against some systems, but not others. And the French. John, we are referring to, oh yeah, don't play against the French either. Yeah, you got to play D4 against French players and E4, E5 players. Some people would say they don't want to play against the Sicilian either. Maybe E4 is just a weak move. Does everybody agree? It's just a weak move. I'm kidding, of course, but there are problems. It's hard to play E4. And in fact, I had the same thing. I just didn't like playing against E5, and this was 20 years ago. I never really liked playing against E5. I mean, I did for years, but I think black's defenses are all easy and you know, simple. Okay, after D6, it's usually good. Yeah, if white plays too slowly, maybe black plays too slowly. It's also maybe better if black's already played knight F6 and maybe something like C6. Yeah, slow moves. But you have to know, just learn the opening. You know, study. That's what's so great about study. You get a feeling for the exact positions, the exact things. Yeah, that's d4 is better, is a more fun move in my opinion, and actually more interesting because the game gets simplified less often. You can really keep pieces on the board and have some fun strategically. But I'm a strategic player. And actually, in a way, though, you get more tactics too because the pieces stay on the board. So you have more pieces attacking each other. That's just my opinion. I mean, e4 is a very professional opening because so what if there are a lot of drawish lines? Draws are okay on a 2800 level, right? Um, but but and c4 tends to black has too many good moves against on the 2800 level on any kind of level up to 24. And of course, professional players play it all the time. But for one thing, I think the professionals really have some problems playing against the reverse Sicilian. It's a lot easier in a way than the Sicilian, oddly enough. Um, so that's why a lot of them play knight f3, like Kramnik, for example, stops e5 first and then plays c4. And I would say that's more common now than just playing c4. Could be wrong about that, but almost every top player plays c4 once in a while. Kasparov played it a lot. Karpov played it some. And the top players now, Carlsen's played it. Well, really almost everyone has. Aronian has played that quite a bit. So pretty much everybody's, Gary, well, probably everyone. I've said that 5 times now. Okay, so how are we doing, folks? No more comments. What else did I have to show? Anything important? I was asked my opinion by Colin of what's my opinion of the book Dynamic Chess Strategy. That's an old book by Michael Suba. It was published in 1991, a very thin little book. And then later there was a 2010 update from New in Chess. So I'll just say first of all that I thought the first edition, which was brilliant, uh, the update didn't do much for me. I didn't, it seemed, okay, the first edition, the one reason it's wonderful is he has all these original ideas. And it's fun and it's humorous. And it has great games and examples in it. Even though it's a rather short book, it's got just content, a lot of content. Suba was an extremely original player, is, I guess. I think he's still playing. Maybe not. And the update, I just didn't see many original ideas. He sort of philosophizes about a lot of stuff, but maybe I didn't even agree with him. But still, I mean, you can't go wrong because you've got the original. Probably everything in the original is in the update. And I cited this book repeatedly in my book, Secrets of Modern Chess Strategy. The Suba, some of Suba's ideas. Suba's funny because he basically he says what I said in Secrets of Modern Chess Strategy. The awful lot of the old rules are just worthless. The sort of general principles just don't apply, and they don't even apply to a majority of positions. They just really, you can't be that dogmatic. And he came up with all kinds of wonderful and original openings and ideas, and good strong player. I wonder if that's a good place to stop. I'm going to stop right on time today. I know I usually go over. So I guess I'll say bye to everybody. And hope you got something out of it. Please send me more stuff. I'm actually starting to get fewer things. So you can send me questions and games or even comments if you want to talk about some book or talk about some chess history. I've always wondered why we don't get more about chess history. Oh wait, do I missed a question. Let me go. I knew the theory. Give me a second. I knew bishop c4. Where was that? Jonathan, when deciding on an opening repertoire, how do you evaluate your play to know what openings work best for you? Unfortunately, I think you just have to play a lot. Don't give them up too early. Try some opening that appeals to you and study it. And just because you lose a game or two, don't give it up. Just learn it better, at least at first. A nice thing is that whatever openings you do give up, you don't give them up completely. You can still play them later because you've studied them and you know them. But you move to another opening because it's more fun. But try not to give up the old one. It's a good secret weapon. You know, these days people can look up what you play, or they've played, a lot of you are in club situations where you've played the same person 20 times. So if you keep your opening repertoire a little broader, in other words, against e4, you could play several defenses. You can play the French and the Caro-Kann, or e5 and the French, or the Sicilian and the French, or maybe throw in an Elyakins or a Pirc. I think both those openings are still sound, actually, Elyakins and the Pirc. The Pirc is probably very respectable right now. So play 2 or 3 openings against it. Now, it's hard to do that for you guys because you're not professionals, but the point is you can do it over the years. You can start with one opening, play it for a long time, learn it, and then maybe you get tired of it, or maybe you don't even like it that much. So learn another one and come back to that one later. But don't forget, don't jettison what you've already studied. like against d4, people play just about everything, right? They play King's Indians, they play Grunfelds, they play d4, d5, so they play Slavs, they play Queen's Gambit declines, they play Slavs, they play, Queen's Gambit accepted. So my advice would be to just play a bunch of games. You can play online. If you play online, you'll probably get a feeling for what openings work for you, even though I'm not a big online, blitz. If you can play 15-minute games, probably better. But you can still get a feel for what you like and what you don't like. Okay, yeah, and that's what Muhammad M says. He beat me to it. He says it depends on what you like and what you're good at. Say you're very good at maneuvering and piece replacement, whatever piece replacement is, I don't know what that is, then you should play d4 rather than e4. Or, and you're right, I think d4 tends to be more strategic, but I should also say you can play e4, but you can play it positionally instead of tactically. It's got a kind of a tactical reputation, but most of the lines the top players play now are very slow in maneuvering after e4. So really both d4 and e4 and c4 at the top levels are all slow. They're all maneuvering. They like to keep the pieces on the board. The problem with e4, of course, is so often the pieces go off the board quickly, especially in these classical lines. And okay, but not always. Even in the classical lines, you can play slowly. Let me see. But if you have nerves of steel and great vision, then play the Sicilian. But if you're working in that area, play the Caro-Kann. Sure. Also look at the French. Sure. If you're going to play two openings and switch, Scott, I think a lot of times it's nice to play two openings with different characters. The thing about the c6 and e6, they're both light square openings, and they have sort of a similar character. I would tend, if you're going to play c6, I would tend for my second opening to be something like c5, or like I say, the Pierz, which is a dark square opening, or maybe e5 if you want something a little more assertive in the center. I think mixing the Caro-Kann and the French, it's okay, but it wouldn't be my first recommendation because you're sort of playing similar positions, and what you want to do is learn more types of positions. That's why I play the London and Ruy Lopez. Yeah, you don't always get the Ruy Lopez, right, because black has so many e4 defenses, but absolutely. Just play the Caro and black is okay, sure. But the problem with that, of course, is your chess gets very limited. It's fine, nothing wrong with the Caro-Kann, but right, 9 to 5 workers. Well, that was my point. Who has time to study two different major openings? And I would say everybody does. They just need to do it over a longer time period. I wouldn't get stuck my whole life on one opening. There's too many players that do that. It's not much fun. I had how cramped black is in the advanced Caro-Kann. I think he doesn't have to be cramped. If you look at a lot of the good Caro-Kann players, they grab enough space. But I know what you're saying. Right now, the advanced Caro-Kann it's funny, for years it wasn't considered the best line at all. But you can see what he means by cramped. It's hard to get your knight out. Maybe even your bishop can't go here. But the good players seem to get their pieces out and get enough space. They can all play these moves and knight c6. And usually your pieces can find room somewhere. That's the idea. But I know what you mean about that, especially if you play it kind of slowly. Whoops, I scrolled down incorrectly. Here we go. I played the Caro-Kann for a year, and you can easily get smashed. Yeah, a really top player might smash you. French and Caro-Kann will get you cramped with e5, so he likes the Sicilian. All right, yeah, those were good comments by all of you, and I think they pretty much correspond to what I was saying. The only thing you're not saying is that you're saying one opening is better than the other, and that's probably not true. I think the French, Sicilian, Caro-Kann, they're all fine, and e4, e5, they're all fine. They're all draws in the end, aren't they, if you play well? Okay, I think this time I've really got it. I've gone through just about everything that was important in the chat. So send me some things, and I'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.